The chair for the occasion, respected former leader of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, General Yakubu Gowon, Bishop Matthew Kukah, the Catholic Bishop of the Diocese of Sokoto, the representative of the President of the Senate, Senator Monsurat Sumomi, dignitaries of the Nigerian state, fellow Africans, ladies and gentlemen. I must at the outset express my sincere gratitude to the Most Reverend Dr. Matthew Hassan Kukah, Catholic Bishop of Sokoto, Father Kukah, to me, for the honor of this invitation to be the keynote speaker at this public lecture on how to make democracy work for Africa. It is being sponsored by the Kukah Center, a platform created by this extraordinary man to contribute to the evolution of public policy in Africa. The invitation is highly appreciated by me, especially as I have the honor to give its inaugural lecture. It is furthermore always a delight to come to Nigeria, a country I describe as my second home, and which is in fact the maternal origin of two of my 5 daughters. I've known Father, I'm also delighted that these proceedings are occurring in a place that is dedicated to the memory of an outstanding Nigerian and African, Shehu Musa Yar'Adua, a man I knew in our youth, and which has become famous as a center for promoting important discussions on African matters. We should also all be grateful that Vice President Yemi Osinbajo was able to take time off a busy day to share his insightful views with us this morning. I've known Father Kukah for several years, and any time I've had the opportunity of meeting him, his views on matters affecting our respective countries and the continent were strong and enlightening. He also spared no effort in trying to deepen my faith in God. Indeed, when I was appointed Attorney General in the year 2001, some 17 years ago, by that outstanding Ghanaian statesman, the former President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency John Agyekum Kufuor, I enlisted the support of Father Kukah for the establishment of the National Reconciliation Commission, which sought to heal the wounds of our troubled past of authoritarian rule, with its history of multiple violations of human rights. He was present at its inauguration and was a strong supporter of the work of the Commission, for which I will always be grateful. The Commission ensured that however gruesome and painful the accounts from the sittings of the Commission were, they did not trigger off an orgy of retribution. Father Kukah had a lot to do with that. Father Kukah, as we say in Ghana, Aiko. Let me also congratulate Father Kukah on his deserved elevation to the important office of Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Sokoto. I know no one better suited to handle that office. In the foreseeable future, surely there must be an African Pope. And should his hat be thrown in the ring, and should there be no hat from Ghana, he will definitely be my choice. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa has certainly come a long way, but we should not take it for granted that everybody has accepted democracy as the preferred mode of governance. There are those who would rather have authoritarian rule because they claim Africa is underdeveloped and democracy is cumbersome and we need to get things done in a hurry. We still have work to do to convince such people that we are all safer under democracies. The man who is regarded as the doyen of Ghanaian politics and who led the first political party to fight for Ghanaian independence and freedom, Joseph Dankwa of most blessed memory, articulated clearly over 50 years ago, at the height of the Cold War, the policy which continues to guide us. And I quote, "Our policy is to liberate the energies of the people for the growth of a property-owning democracy in this land, with right to life, freedom, and justice as the principles to which the government and laws of the land should be dedicated in order specifically to enrich life, property, and liberty of each and every citizen," unquote. It has taken us this long for consensus to emerge in Ghana that the democratic form of governance is preferable, and the rapid growth of the private sector in an open market is the better route to prosperity of our nation. There was a time in Africa when most countries were one-party states and everybody had to belong to that party. Some decades ago, all the radio and television stations and newspapers were exclusively owned by the government. If you wanted to hear any voice in opposition, you'd probably have to tune into a foreign radio station like the BBC. Most of our youth are unaware that a culture of silence used to reign in most parts of the continent. We're not quite there yet, but yet there is far more self-confidence amongst Africans today than there has been since the very early days of freedom. Self-freedom and the principles of democratic accountability are strengthening the determination of Africans to build a new Africa that is neither pawn nor victim of the world order. When I started thinking about the subject matter of our gathering, it struck me how interesting it was that the words Africa and Africans appear to have more resonance outside the continent than inside. When we're home here on our continent, it seems very important to assert that we are Ghanaians, Kenyans, Zambians, Swazis, Senegalese, South Africans, and of course that we are Nigerians. We do not want anybody to forget that there are 54 sovereign nations on the continent with different cultures, languages, and rates of development. We would admit to some regional cohesion and ascribe certain characteristics to these regional groupings. The East Africans would insist, for example, that the West Africans are loud, and the West Africans would say that the Central Africans are violent. Some people claim they can tell where someone comes from simply by the shape of a forehead. And then there are the divisions that are linked to our colonial experiences. The Anglophones claim an affinity between each other, no matter how distant their countries might be, that they cannot find with their Francophone neighbors. But then, we might be both Anglophone and West African, but we know, do we not, that Ghana is and Ghanaians are very different from Nigerian and Nigerians. Then we find ourselves outside the continent, and we discover that to the outside world, we are simply Africans. There we find that an American president would use the same colorful adjective to describe all 54 countries on the continent. The lesson is clear. Our destinies are inextricably linked with each other, and it is not only those of us on the continent, but this will include the Africans in the diaspora as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, what is this Africa? And who are we? What defines us? And who defines us? Ours is a continent that is home to some of the most spectacular scenes that nature bestowed on this planet. Our continent has every mineral that mankind desires, and whichever one that is required to run a modern economy. Paradoxically, Africa also happens to be the poorest continent. Africa has been called many names throughout the ages: dark, beleaguered, a scar on the conscience of the world, hapless, and hopeless are some of the more frequent and colorful ones that can be repeated in decent company, until the recent dramatic intervention of US President Donald J. Trump. Our continent has the youngest population, and our youth, who bear the brunt of the suffering, now resort to desperate measures to get out. They brave the Sahara Desert on foot, and those who survive the ravages of the desert risk being sold in slave markets in Libya, or risk journeys across the Mediterranean Sea on rickety boats, all in the forlorn hope of a better life in Europe. We are defined as that modern entity called an illegal immigrant. Those who are giving this definition appear to have temporary amnesia, for they appear to have conveniently forgotten the 19th century European history was marked largely by the large flow of European migrants, particularly Irish and Italian, into the El Dorado of America's green pastures, at a time when the political economies of Ireland and Italy were in dire straits. Significant improvements in their economies have put an end to the emigration of their nationals. Anyone, everybody in a position of leadership in Africa today has his work cut out. I do not suggest that we lock up our young people to prevent them from embarking on these hazardous journeys. The urgent responsibility we face is to make our countries, our continent, attractive for our youth to see as places of opportunities. It means that we must provide education, education, and education. It means our young people must acquire the skills that run modern economies. There will always be those amongst our young people who will want to try their luck in foreign countries. When they are skilled, they will not have to risk drowning in the Mediterranean Sea. They would be headhunted and treated with dignity. A few weeks ago, I was in Dakar, Senegal, to attend a special conference called to raise monies to fund education in Africa. I said it there, and it bears repeating here. There is enough money in Africa to enable us pay for educating and training our young people and making them ready to face the world of the 21st century. Where is this money? As a start, I refer to the report of the panel chaired by the highly respected former South African President, Thabo Mbeki, on the illicit flow of funds from Africa, which has raised the lid on what many had always suspected, but did not have the figures to support. According to the report, Africa is losing annually more than 50 billion United States dollars through illicit financial outflows. The report revealed further that between 2000 and 2008, 252 billion, representing 56.2% of the illicit flow of funds from the continent, was from the extractive industries, including mining. The shocking and dispiriting part of the story, of course, is the fact that we Africans have some responsibility for taking these monies out of our countries and into Western countries. But a lot of it is spirited by those who come claiming to do business with us. It is clear that we are not well equipped to cope with those who come to conduct business in our countries with the main aim of making extraordinary returns through unorthodox and illegal means. It is for this reason that in September 2017, I launched the free senior high school policy in Ghana, which will ensure that all Ghanaian children attain a minimum of senior high school education. This is the only way we can create an educated workforce to accelerate the process of development. I hesitate to prescribe policy initiatives for other countries, but on a matter of education, I have no hesitation whatsoever in recommending that all African countries adopt the policy of free compulsory education from kindergarten to senior high school. This is one of the most important things we have to do if we are to make the transformation from our current state of poverty to prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, it should not require emphasizing that no one is going to sort out matters in Africa except Africans themselves. We must match those who come to do business with us in all the skills they possess. We must have our own set of bright and sharp lawyers, our own set of bright and sharp accountants to keep us abreast with the sharp and bright lawyers and accountants that our trade partners have. In much the same way, we need to have our own bright and sharp technologists to keep us abreast with our competitors. I need not spell out that even when we think we are dealing in an area with a level playing field, like trade, Africa invariably gets a bad deal. Investors find innovative ways to avoid paying the taxes that they should in the African countries in which they operate. It is in these areas that it becomes obvious that there's great advantage to African countries operating together as a bloc rather than as individual countries. As I always say, there's strength in unity. We on this continent have a great battle to fight and win, and that is the battle to provide our people with a good quality of life. The structure of economies bequeathed to us by the colonialists was aimed at servicing our colonial masters, essentially raw material producing and exporting economies. The time is long overdue for us to take a deep look at these structures and transform our economies to serve better our own needs. The era of Africa's industrialization has dawned, so that we can also trade in the world economy, not on the basis of exports of raw materials, but on the basis of things we make. It has been shown that countries or groups of countries with the largest share of world trade are located within regions with the highest share of intra-regional trade. Trade between African regions remains low compared to other parts of the world. In the year 2000, intra-regional trade accounted for 10% of Africa's total trade and increased marginally to 11% in 2015. Trading amongst members of the European Union, for example, amounted to 70% in 2015. I believe it is extremely important for the welfare of the 1.2 billion people of the continent that we, the leaders, demonstrate strong political will to make the African Union an economic and political success and to make the project of integration real. With Africa's population set to reach some 2 billion people in 20 years' time, an African common market presents immense opportunities to bring prosperity to our continent with hard work, with enterprise, and with creativity. It is evident that the time for African integration should be now. Hence the importance of the success of the continental free trade area. A working common continental market has to be a very fundamental objective of all peoples and governments on the continent. The decision the AU is about to take in Kigali, the capital of Rwanda, on the 21st of March next month at its extraordinary summit for member states to sign and launch the treaty for the establishment of the Continental Free Trade Area is one of the most important decisions the AU will ever take. It is vital that the treaty works and that the Continental Free Trade Area becomes an immediate reality. For the market to be viable, there must be peace and stability on the continent. Nothing undermines the prospects of our continent more than being known as unstable. And unfortunately, our politics has been the main source of the spark for instability. We all have to work hard to establish peace across the continent and put the specter of instability finally to rest. The concerted efforts that are being made to tackle the scourge of terrorism, represented by Al-Shabaab in Somalia, Boko Haram in Nigeria, and the jihadists in Mali and the Sahel region, are beginning to yield positive results as we witness the systematic degradation of their capabilities. The news, however, of the continuing and deepening crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is leading to the massive displacement of hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians, is very depressing. It brings into sharp relief the urgent necessity for the continental body, the AU, to rise to the occasion and find immediately a lasting solution to the perennial problems of that tragic country. That solution has to address the twin issues of the unity and stability of the Congolese state and the establishment of democracy that will allow the Congolese people the opportunity in free and fair elections to choose their leaders. It is a test of the effectiveness of the AU, which it cannot and must not fail. We need peace and freedom on our continent. I hesitate to preach to anyone on this particular subject. I would only say that we in Ghana, having tried everything else, have finally reached a consensus that a multi-party system of governance works best for us. Our Fourth Republic has lasted for 25 years under a multi-party constitution. Indeed, we celebrated its silver jubilee on the 7th of January. We're stable, and there have been 3 peaceful changes of government from a ruling party to an opposition party during the Fourth Republic. We must also encourage the AU member countries to demonstrate a commitment to strengthening and protecting the institutions and culture of democratic governance, respecting human rights, religious freedom, the empowerment of women, and the rights of the individual and minorities, building strong market economies, and facilitating the free movements of people, knowledge, goods, and services across member states. Africa's small countries will continue to struggle if they go it alone, but the accelerated economic integration of committed nations will breathe new life into the AU and deliver the benefits of African integration to the doorsteps of the African peoples. The time has now come for us in Africa to move on even further to deepen our democracy. It is time to make sure that we have genuine separation of powers between the various arms of government. Our parliaments, the legislative arms of government, must grow into their proper roles as effective machineries for accountability and oversight of their executives. Our judiciaries must also inspire confidence in the citizens so that we can all see the courts as ultimate impartial arbiters when disputes arise, as they would. It is only when our public institutions are working as they should that we will be able to confront and deal effectively with the canker of corruption, which has been the bane of our development. The systematic targeting of corruption, a central feature of the administration of His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, deserves the support of all well-meaning Nigerians and Africans. And indeed, it is appropriate that this year's AU theme, Winning the Fight Against Corruption, a sustainable path to Africa's transformation, unquote, should have President Muhammadu Buhari as its champion. He is providing leadership which we should all emulate. It is early days yet, but our institutions are growing and the self-confidence of our people is becoming manifest. I dare say that we are even beginning to accept that a political party can lose an election with grace and serve with honor in opposition. The greatest challenge and feel the dividends of the democratic system of governance. In the 1 year that I've had the privilege of leading my country, I've tried to be honest with the people of Ghana. We are nowhere near where we should be and where we all want to be. It is important that we make an honest assessment of ourselves and our situation on the continent. I wonder, for example, whatever happened to the peer review mechanism. There might be 54 countries, and we might resent being lumped together for the wrong reasons, but there are ties that bind us together as Africans. We have good reasons to be proud of who we are and the beautiful continent that is ours. Today, the People's Republic of China calls itself and is regarded as a world power. Over 30 years ago, Princeton University, one of America's most prestigious Ivy League universities, offered a course in Mandarin, which for years had virtually no takers. Today, there is standing room only. And it is not because the course is any easier. It is because the position of China has changed. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, China was nowhere near where it is today. China does not ask for respect now. She does not need to. If we work at it, if we stop being beggars, govern ourselves intelligently and honestly in freedom, and spend Africa's monies inside the continent, Africa would not need to ask for respect for anyone. We don't need to ask for respect from anyone. We should get the respect we deserve. We have a responsibility to take care of our environment. We have the most spectacular natural surroundings, grandest rivers and mountains. We have the minerals that the world would kill for. We have a dynamic and young population. We bring humanity alive. Let us make this continent the prosperous and joyful place it should be. Friends, we do not have to look far back into history to see the stable period of constitutional government and intelligent management of the economy leads to prosperity. Brazil has shown us that these are not theoretical arguments. In the last 2.5 decades, Brazil has transformed her economy and the lives of her people, lifting some 30 million people out of poverty during the last decade alone. We in Africa can identify with Brazil and we can learn lessons from them. I believe in Africa's immense potential for greatness. I believe the stable democracies in Africa can help unleash energies to drive the transformation of the continent. There is a lot of talk that this will be the Asian century, the Chinese century. But take it from me, the 21st century holds excellent prospects for Africa. This can be Africa's century. We can claim it if we believe in ourselves. I thank you very much for your attention. And may God bless the peoples in Ghana, Nigeria, and North Africa.
Another round of applause.